Caution! The AJ and Quill show contains D&D content and is intended for a D&D audience. And, besides that, they're really weird. Hi everyone, welcome to Total Party Quill, your one-stop for monster tactics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm AJ, your friendly neighborhood tiefling. This is my fearless companion, Quill the Dragon. Say hi, Quill.
Tremble, puny humans. One day my race will destroy you all.
Anywho, you got questions, we got answers. Let's cha-cha. So Wizards of the Coast announced a new adventure, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, coming out in September. And to help people get ready for that upcoming adventure, we're going to be covering monster tactics for creatures we think you're going to encounter inside that campaign.
So what are we talking about today?
Frost Giants.
Ooh, hot topic.
Don't you mean cold topic? Now, Frost Giants are a CR8 huge giant found on page 155 of the 5th edition monster manual. You can think of giants as kind of like mega humans.
How dreadful.
No, I mean only in that how they behave. They have the same values that humanoids would tend to have, only their interests are directly tied to their specific place in the Ordning, depending on what kind of giant they are.
Wait, not everybody knows what the Ordning is. Perhaps we should explain that.
Good idea, Quill. Let's get a little meta-adjacent and explain what the Ordning is.
Now, all giants belong to a highly organized caste system called the Ordning. In the Ordning, all giants are assigned a social rank. And by understanding it, each giant knows which other giant is superior to it and which are inferior to it, since no two giants are equal. Each giant race analyzes a different set of skills or qualities to determine its place in the Ordning. And these giants make excelling at these qualities the purpose of their lives. At the top of the Ordning, you will see the storm giants, and towards the bottom you'll find creatures more like hill giants and giant kin, such as ettins and ogres. Something to keep in mind, a giant of a higher rank, for example, a storm giant, will always be superior to any giant lower in the Ordning, meaning that even the lowest storm giant is still superior to the highest frost giant. As a note, it is not considered evil or disrespectful for a giant to betray another giant of a different type. It is merely considered rude. So, the Ordning is the giant's status hierarchy and how they relate to other giants.
Now, frost giants are huge creatures. They stand about 20 feet tall and weigh about 2,800 pounds.
They have white or light blue skin and either white or dirty yellow hair. They typically wear skins and pelts along with jewelry carved from animals and tokens. Their eye color typically matches their hair color.
And the way that giants typically view us smaller humanoids is kind of how you would view a squirrel or a sparrow.
Frost giants have an AC of 15 with 138 hit points. They have a high strength and constitution, but a much lower dex.
And this is the physical profile of what we would call a melee tank. It's a creature that gets into melee range, starts hitting things with whatever weapon it has, and doesn't really move around too much. A frost giant in combat would typically play out much like a movie Viking or a barbarian that you would see on television.
They have skills in athletics and perception. This would portray them much more as hunters and pillagers.
And this is the same way that many primitive humanoids like orcs or barbarians would behave.
And though we shouldn't have to explain it, frost giants are immune to cold.
And this feature makes them perfect for Arctic environments, much like Icewind Dale. Now, frost giants have two actions that they can use to attack in combat. They can hurl a rock, or they have a great axe attack, which has a range of 10 feet because of their size.
Imagine the size of a great axe a 20-foot tall frost giant would need to wield.
Now, inside the monster manual, it says that you can assume that any creature that has a thrown ammunition typically carries 2d4 pieces of ammunition. So just assume that every frost giant has access to about 4 boulders that it can hurl.
Frost giant boulders are typically portrayed as giant chunks of ice or stone covered in frost.
And in their Arctic environment, a frost giant might not even need to carry any stones on its person. It could simply grab them off the ground if it's throwing ice chunks.
They also have a multi-attack that they can use in combat that lets them make 2 great axe attacks.
So let's put it all together. Frost giants, because of their nature, typically won't flee from a fight. They're more likely to go looking for it. And once frost giants have a target, they will use their 40 feet of movement to advance towards that target. And while doing so, they'll use their Dwayne Johnson attack until they are within 50 feet of their intended target.
Once frost giants are within 50 feet, they use their 40-foot movement to charge straight towards their victim. From there, they can reach their target with the 10-foot reach on their great axe. Once in melee range, they will use their multi-attack until the target is dead.
Now, frost giants would behave in combat much like how you would think a movie barbarian or a Viking would behave. They attack indiscriminately, and they tend to prefer targets that are bigger and stronger looking, just as a mark of honor so they can prove how tough they are.
Frost giants like determining who is the strongest. Might makes right.
Now, most creatures that we cover would suffer a morale failure once they reach 1/4 of their total hit points.
But because of their place in the Ordning and how they view an honorable death, frost giants won't flee from combat and thus won't suffer a morale failure.
Now, an interesting fact that frost giants are one of the only 2 true giant races that can suffer from a form of lycanthropy.
Like werewolves?
Exactly like werewolves, only in the frost giants' case, it's actually were-bears. They become these giant were-polar bears. There's also another kind of lycanthropy that they had in the lore where they could essentially become were-sea lions.
But a were-polar bear seems much more scary.
And combat for a frost giant will continue this way. It'll attack with its multi-attack when it's in range, and when it's not in range, it'll advance using its movement and using its range attack until it reaches melee again. This continues until either the target is dead or the frost giant's dead. Now, in a lot of the product release, we've seen pictures of a frost giant skeleton. The tactics for a skeleton really won't change all that much. They might get an undead fortitude ability where they can come back if they're reduced to 0 hit points, but really you wouldn't use them all that differently than how we describe a living frost giant.
They just have more corpsey bits.
And that's about it. Short and sweet. We hope this helps you with frost giants for the upcoming adventure, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, and another creature that you can add into your repertoire for monsters and tactics. And we'd like to offer our most sincere apologies to the lovely Miss Deborah Ann Lowe. I'm sorry, darling, we wanted to get you on the show, we just ran out of time.
We should have her on when we're doing vampires. And don't forget to tune in next time when our special guest will be the hilarious Mr. Will Friedle, star of the hit TV series Kim Possible.
And that's it. To send us off, here's Quill's Joke of the Day. Quill?
How do frost giants protect themselves from a firebolt spell?
I don't know. How do frost giants protect themselves from a firebolt spell?
They turn up their AC.
Anyway, we'll hope to catch you next time. Tune in and we'll continue this adventure. Say goodbye, Quill.
Bye.
Yeah, 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 yeah.